Hello, this is our book club on Don Quixote by Cervantes, and firstly we would like to introduce ourselves.
My name is Aierke.
Alexandra.
Aruzhan.
Aliya.
Rizayel.
Aigerim.
Beybarys.
So firstly, let's start with discussing the first chapter of the novel. What happens in the first chapter? Can you guys tell me?
I think we're just getting introduced to our main character, who's a near 50-year-old Alonso Quijano, who's later in the book we know as Don Quixote. He's a small-sized landowner who just spends his time on hunt, and I think that's all he does.
Yes.
What about reading chivalry romances?
That's what he gets into during the plot.
Yes, what do you guys think? Why did he feel like he wants to change his name and become a whole new person?
Because he loses his mind, in a way.
I think he's too obsessed and kind of delusional about all this stories.
Maybe it's midlife crisis. Because he's like 50 years old, 50
Yes.
done.
Oh, yes.
Also, like I've read information that like Cervantes, the author of this book itself, like was a big fan of these chivalry books, but he was like pissed with this like cliches, like all these like the main characters of these books always like doing some stuff and like, oh look how great I am, and he wanted to like make something different in his time, so he wrote this Don Quixote book.
Do you guys think that he decided to become Don Quixote only because of the books, or there was something else in his life? Maybe he was
agree
lonely or bored.
With
simply.
Rizayel, that maybe it was crisis of his age because he was bored with his regular life and he tried to, disconnect from reality by reading these romances, chivalry books and so on, and that's why he started imagining himself living this interesting
I
life.
had exactly that idea also when reading Madame Bovary, and originally I made my parallels, built my parallels with Don Quixote. Now I do it in reverse. So what do they have in common? They both live wealthy enough life to afford all these fantasies, yet not wealthy enough to actually live their fantasies. So that's why they fall into this loophole.
Yes, because he even sold like his acres of land to buy more books,
Yes.
but he didn't even bother to spend his money like on a normal helmet, etc., or a horse. So, what do you think is missing from his life? We are introduced that he is living with a housekeeper and also his niece, but nothing else is said about
Love.
his family.
Drama,
Okay.
play and answer adventures.
Yes. And do you think his decision to revive this knighthood was simply his madness, or is a normal thing to do? Like, because everyone has different opinion on it.
You're saying
Looking forward to what will happen next, I think he's a bit mentally ill.
Because at first I thought it's like not so much of a madness, it's just simply boredom. But then I agree that it becomes evident that he's actually mad. So, should we move on to chapter
maybe
two?
it's because like we wouldn't call it boredom, but in a way it is like kind of his idealism of life. So maybe he's trying to try for something he never experienced before.
Yes.
Because taking that he's wealthy and he has all his, how do we say потребности?
Needs.
Basic needs closed. So he is trying to find something new, like in a moral sense. But he got in the kind of wrong direction for me.
He probably just like разочаровался. Disappointed from like this bored life, like all this how to say,
His constant routine.
yes, and he wanted to like some magic, like something interesting to happen in his
I
life.
think he also wants to be remembered by something later in life.
Yeah.
And he wants books to be written about him, and it's mentioned many times.
It's a
Yeah,
good
and
point.
he also like
in later we are told that the knights, they reach something, there are some achievements, and he sees it as a goal, and he like thinks that if he does this, like all these travels and stuff, he will also be as successful as the other knights.
Yes. And also, even if he wants to be remembered, like every person, like every knight does, he also says that it's his mission, like that he is a servant of the god and he is like the undoer of the injustice. So maybe he believes that his mission is something more than just like doing these adventures.
So he has good intentions, like
Yes,
in the
he
essence.
has good intentions.
But yeah.
But the way he reaches them seems so naive. Like, and with that, let's move to the second chapter. So in the second chapter, he sets out to his first adventure. And where does he end up? Do you remember?
In the inn.
Yes.
In the inn, which he mistakes for a castle. And why do you think that the innkeeper and also the girls there, they don't try to tell him that he's not right about this castle thing? They just act along his
Maybe because of his
fantasy.
origin.
Time out. Этот.
He doesn't-
Почему мы не сделали этот типа brief review of what happened?
Of what? Oh, one.
Like from 1 to 7 chapters, like what's your discussion?
Алия
about
планирует.
Мне
that?
кажется,
We're
мы
going
и так,
through?
типа...
Нет,
Мы же
типа
делаем.
сперва же надо типа brief explanation of what happening in those chapters that you were.
По-моему, у нас хороший флоу, все
Мне кажется, легче как-то chapter by chapter, чем говорить весь summary, а потом вспоминать.
Нет, не
что
весь
там.
summary, briefly просто. Примерно, что произошло, какие-то яркие моменты.
Мы можем сделать это в конце банально. Мы сейчас проболтаем, вот, what was the role of these 7 chapters. Дон Кихота made himself as a knight. Продолжаем вторая половина. Проговариваем, на чем мы заканчиваем. По-моему, так тоже можно.
Ну, если хотите, можем summary сначала всех 7 чаптеров.
I like the way it goes. Maybe we don't
Мне
even-
кажется, chapter by chapter как-то легче. Потому
Можно
что
даже вот это
вспоминаешь
не
всякое.
вырезать сейчас, мне кажется. Это
Не, я не говорю то, что заново начать, я имею в виду, типа, это можно вставить.
Не, я имею в виду то, что мы сейчас обсуждаем, мне кажется,
Что
что...
за сырой материал просто на русском?
Субтитры на английском.
Chatting in Russian.
Так как сделаем?
А я могу по-другому сделать, типа, почему?
Что, мы переписываем начало во второй главе?
А?
Где мы остановились?
Потому что я спрошу, давайте, типа, where does he end up? So in the second chapter, Don Quixote sets out for his first adventure, and where does he end up? Yes.
And he mistakes it for a castle, of course.
Yes, he mistakes it for a castle, but the people that are there, including the innkeeper, the maidens, as he calls those girls, they just act upon his fantasy and don't really seem to bother telling him that it's actually a simple inn. Why do you guys think that they are doing this?
Because he's the source of their income, basically, and the client is always right, sort of thing, plays here.
Do you think they
But
had
did
that
he
at that time?
Client
is always right.
She was intended to pay what he just came in, so I guess that was the idea.
Oh, okay. Maybe they were too confused to understand what was happening.
Yeah,
and
also that.
yes, and also maybe they were making fun of him.
Yeah, it's still like an entertainment for them.
Mhm.
In
Yeah,
a sense.
like, I'm a knight, yeah, you're a knight, you're a knight.
Yes, and do you guys think the innkeeper was like mocking him?
Yeah,
or
yes,
he
for
was
sure,
simply
like,
trying to
yes.
please his client? No?
Mocking, I think, like, obviously, why wouldn't you mock
Mhm.
someone?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Maybe
what?
he thought like if he's like a knight or pretending to be a knight, he might be like richer, and he would like give him tips for like, thank you for like cooperating.
I think one part that we actually discussed in class is that knights were still intact at that time. Knights was a social status, so an individual can still be a knight at that time.
Yes.
But further, he asks the innkeeper to make
Make
Don Quixote
him
a
a
But
knight.
yeah,
So
he
yeah,
actually
so-
acts on it. Yeah.
He asked the innkeeper to dub him a knight, and to which the innkeeper replied that he can't do it. He actually ended up like reading some, what was like prayers They were similar to prayers, as mentioned by the author. But then something happens at the inn that the people actually try to tell Don Quixote that he's not behaving well. What is this episode? Do you remember?
So when he said what should I do to become a knight, and he said I don't know, guard. And he went to guard and was beating up every person who comes by to give a water to horses.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, and everyone in the hotel, in the inn, started throwing stones at him. But he then started to threaten them that he will come and destroy everything. To which they actually became quite scared. And I think this reveals that even though he's naive and kind of delusional, it's still kind of dangerous to mess with Don Quixote. What do you guys also think about this episode?
I think that in this episode, the innkeeper realized that Don Quixote is not just playing a game, that he is knight, but he is really mad. That's why he tried to solve all his problems and give him what he wants and just let him go.
Yes. So, should we move on?
We forgot the part that the innkeeper was rushed to make him a knight, actually. And the ceremony took place.
Yes. Don Quixote wanted to find some special place, but the innkeeper was like, we can do it right here. Nothing is needed here. And in the third episode, he's still in the inn. I think it's in the third chapter that he is done.
We combined them.
Yes. We just talked about the two chapters.
Do you have any insights on why in the beginning the innkeeper was going along with Don Quixote? Because I'm really interested in what you think also.
I think he was just mocking him, and I don't think it's because he's his client. I think it's just Cervantes trying to use this character for to show us the irony of this whole situation. It would be boring if the innkeeper would just bring Don Quixote down to earth.
Yeah, probably.
It's kind of a literary device maybe that the author uses to show this mocking the chivalry and traditions, such as the dubbing the night ceremony. So it's also a funny episode. And what does this ceremony actually tell us about Don Quixote's kind of vision of his reality?
He's delusional, I guess. It appears to me.
I think we applied...
It's not just delusional.
We applied the word delusional a lot to Madame Bovary. And with her it worked well, because she was still attached to reality to some extent. But here it's two parallel worlds, and both can be equally just as real. It depends on the perspective that we look at it from.
Yeah, if her delusional was close to the this romantic stuff, his delusion that's right. Is there a word like that?
Delusion.
His delusion is close to the madness.
Yes.
Crazy.
Very.
Yes. And in the case of Madame Bovary, you don't think it's madness, right?
No, because she sees some clear distinctions between reality and what she thinks about her life. So I think yes, there's
another part for her. Her dreams were actually attainable. They were these rich people that she dreamed to become. But here it's a parallel world.
So you think that Madame Bovary lived in the delusions, but she was aware of the reality, whereas Don Quixote was totally clueless, right?
Maybe she was neglecting reality, but Don Quixote,
I like that.
He's not neglecting; he is just simply perceiving it as a reality.
Yeah, he was fully persuaded.
And do you think that his belief in his world of chivalry is more of a comedy or a tragedy?
Both. Classical combination, I think.
Yeah, but maybe for him it wasn't so comedic; it was actually tragic. But Cervantes just showed this to us in this way.
Wasn't it
I think it was
for him?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was tragic for Madame Bovary, if we're comparing again. But for him, he doesn't get depressed or sad about it.
He sees it as an achievement.
Yes.
Yeah, even later when he gets beat up, he like still wants to keep up this.
Yes. And that's the difference, I think, because Madame Bovary, because of her delusions, she becomes demotivated to live. Whereas Don Quixote, on the contrary, he has more strength when he thinks about that. Let's move on to the first chapter. And in the first chapter, Don Quixote already leaves this inn and he sets out to the road where he meets whom? Do you remember?
A little boy who's getting beaten up.
Yes, by the farmer. And do you think Don Quixote is a hero in this scene? Or he is not a hero?
He is a victim, I would say.
A victim?
For himself, he's a hero. He wanted to protect this boy, but then he made everything
I
worse.
think he's objectively in the right with what he does in this chapter, but he doesn't get on the reality details.
Yes.
He can't comprehend the complexity of the real situations.
Yeah.
It's always about adventures and honors for him.
He's this world like here's bad something and something is good, and I'm a knight and I'm on a good side.
Yeah, and everything is black and white.
He seems too naive there because he ends up believing this farmer that he is actually going to pay the boy. And even though he starts off as doing something good, he doesn't make sure that the boy is safe. So, in my opinion, he's not a hero there.
Yes. Because nothing would change even if he didn't encounter the guys, like the man and the boy.
Yes, and nothing changes in the end. But I'm interested, why do you think he's a victim there?
I don't know. Like when I read it, it felt to me like he was a victim in the sense of moral judgment, because he has the same features of the boy. Like he's not taken seriously mainly, and it's hard to explain. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like
it seems as if the farmer doesn't even take his words into account. Is this what you mean?
Yeah.
He's just as infantile as the boy himself.
And everyone ends up mocking him and not taking him seriously. And do you think that Don Quixote has done enough, to protect this boy?
No.
What else could he have done?
He could have taken that boy to his house, and he has a big house, I think, where only 3 people live, and if he really wanted to save that boy, he could have adopted him or something like that.
Yeah, or at least kill the farmer. Nothing changed because the farmer will come later and okay, where we ended, where we.
Yeah, what he actually did.
Yeah.
And knights do killing, right? They kill people.
Yeah, he said later knights kill every time. No one judges them. It's fine in the chivalry world.
So this episode made me think about whether Don Quixote can actually make some positive change that he intends to make.
In the
Because
world?
Yes, because he seems to believe everyone too easily, and I don't think that it's a feature of a person who can actually improve something. What do you guys think?
Maybe by some combination of events. I forgot the word. I forgot it also in Russian.
Synonyms.
Maybe he can do a good change compulsively. If he случайность.
Coincidence?
Accident.
Accident.
If a coincidence takes place and he ends up in a kind of situation where he can help by doing the actions in his knighty style, maybe he can do something for good, for the world. But in general, I don't think so.
Yes.
I also think that with this question we came to the discussion of what is the general point of the whole book. We have all these people inspired with the ideas of chivalry, and where did it lead them? Actually nowhere. They end up getting beaten up.
Yes, and also in this chapter, when he leaves the situation with the boy, he then encounters traders. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yes. The notes for him, or
He's
Yes,
trying to persuade them to admit his woman's beauty.
Yes.
Why did we skip that part?
We didn't skip it, it comes right after.
No, like the part where he.
With Dulcinea.
Yeah, he will say like, "What's your name?" Aldonza. Dulce. How to Dulce?
Dulcinea.
Dulcinea. You'll be Dulcinea.
We also skipped his poor horse.
And skip the armor. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he needed some time to give him a name.
Yes, he
The
needed
horse?
4 days to give
4
his
days.
horse a name, I think, and then 8 days to give himself a name.
Mhm.
And he stayed up reading the books.
Yeah.
That's why I think somebody's name.
Okay, все, продолжаем. Why do you guys think Don Quixote was so eager for these traders to like accept Dulcinea's beauty? Why is it so important to him?
Well, he has chivalry ideas that the knight is just as famous as his famous woman, and everybody should be aware of Dulcinea's existence at least.
And what do these guys actually reply to him when he asks him?
We don't know her.
Yeah.
Well, show us her.
Who is this that you're talking about?
But actually, Don Quixote ends up being mad at these traders.
Yeah.
Like, why is he mad?
Yeah, like she said, like he thought like he should, like if he's chivalry, he should be famous, and so his wife, so his lady.
And I think once again it's implied how superficial ideas of chivalry is, like the beauty of the woman is a pure addition to the man's honors and stuff.
Yes, it's very ironic because Dulcinea doesn't even know about his existence. They were never lovers. And it once again like shows us how delusional he is, I guess. But maybe it's really coming from the books. So in the next chapters, we remember that like Don Quixote's friends think it's actually the books, not. They don't blame him; they blame the books there. So in the chapter 5, he actually returns home after being defeated. And what are the main ideas of this chapter when he returns? What does he realize after his first adventures?
Well,
isn't he depressed?
He need a
in
companion.
some sort of way?
He need a companion.
yeah, I think it's important to mention that Sancho Panza helped him on his way home, and that's how he gained a squire.
Yes, and Sancho actually has his own intentions in helping Don.
Because he was promised with lots of land from Don
Yes,
Quixote,
yes.
and he believes that
To be a
one day
governor of
he
an
will
island.
visit. Yeah.
And it's actually Sancho is a very important character in these episodes because he helps Don and he goes along with him, but he's not so delusional because he realizes that it's not reality what Don is talking about.
I think he's just kind of silly and also naive, because a normal person after all this thing wouldn't follow him. Wait, in the later chapters.
Yes, and at first I thought that his reasoning is quite logical, like he is going to be a governor, but then I thought that like, which normal person would believe such a thing and leave his family, etc. And when Don returns home, someone said that he has depression. Can you elaborate?
Well, I got a hint that he got depressed because he was in his bed or something. Was he sleeping when the 4 people in the house besides him, like his barber, his priest, his housekeeper,
And his niece.
and his niece were elaborating what to do next with him because he's going mad, obviously. So that's when they decided to burn down his books. Yeah.
This part is kind of confusing because they burned his books, and then but they say him that it was wizards who
Yes.
burned the books, and I kind of didn't understand why would they say that. Why would they didn't tell the truth that they themselves burned the books and there is no wizard or something like that? Why didn't they be realistic? But they just developed his idea that they just showed that they also believe in what he believes, which is kind of weird.
Yes.
I don't think that they believed. They just played along.
Yes.
Maybe they tried to not immediately tell him this is all bullshit. You don't need to believe in this. Step by step. It was wizards, then it was not wizards. It was some other chivalries, and step by step they will bring him to the reality. Maybe it was their initial plan.
It was a conscious choice made by Cervantes, I think, in that part. Especially when two of them, the priest, and who is with the priest? Who was sorting the books with him? Barbara. When they were sorting the books, they were talking about these chivalry books. So it's kind of an example of metafiction in a sense. Because they were discussing some book, I don't remember the name, that was also part of chivalry romance, and they were discussing is it worth to read, while they're in some sort of sense in the chivalry in the moment.
Yeah, and priest made a decision to keep that one book.
Yes, so I think it was a conscious choice for Cervantes to make them to keep along with the madness of Don Quixote in the first place.
There also was one book that they were discussing, and it's after was Miguel de Cervantes himself. Them said we shouldn't burn this book. It's good. He will write another chapter of it, and we will read it and so on.
Yes. So we're now talking already about the 6th chapter, and I also kind of don't understand their decision with the magician, because I think it just motivates him to go on adventures even more. So I really don't get it, but maybe it's just what's supposed to be there to develop the plot. And how do they, what do they base their choices on when they're looking at the books that he has and deciding whether to burn them or not?
Maybe on their personal preferences, because if they liked this book, they said we should keep it. And also I think that his books were expensive and maybe limited edition, and they said I want to take this book to my home, and they thought about themselves maybe more than for Don Quixote's well-being.
And I also think that their choices were very subjective, because they talked not about only the influence of the books on Don, but also the language which they were written in, when they were written, and also they still kept books about chivalry. For example, the Knight of the Cross. So the priest said that for the sake of the holy name this book has, we must keep it, etc. So we know that their choice is not so innocent. But do you guys think that they actually have the potential to help Don Quixote?
I think we shouldn't forget that they themselves are the fans of the chivalry books. That's why they're so invested in the division of books. But in the meantime, they're still trying to help their friend.
But
from a safe distance.
Don't you guys think that it's kind of naive of them to think that if they burn the books, everything will just stop?
Maybe they thought that Don Quixote will stop reading them and will return to reality. I don't know. But because he was not just, how do you say?
Delusional.
Not just delusional. I think from this reading these books and imagining himself living the lives of these knights, he developed some mental disorder. That's why he started to even see all these monsters and so on. It's not just a delusion. I think there was no point of burning those books because he already learned them by heart, and they were copy-pasted in his brain.
Maybe they were like anchors or triggers in some sort of way. If you see them again, something switches in his mind.
I think they succeeded to some extent. I don't think we had any other fragments where Don Quixote was reading any books later in the book. He gave up on those and just started on with his adventures.
Yeah.
That's all.
I also don't see the point in burning the books, because the problem is in his mind, not like what he's surrounded by. Because even if he's not surrounded by people who believe he also have these fantasies, he still manages to somehow like find adventures for himself.
Maybe it's a trait of that time, because like those like ancient or some sort of ancient times, they always used to burn things, especially books or something that you wouldn't want people to read, like something that would make your mind dirty or possessed.
Yeah.
So that's why they burned it to the ground.
It was also like at that time. I don't think like they knew what our mental illnesses are. So maybe they thought like he was possessed by these books, and like if we like burn the origin of like madness, he will like become normal.
Yeah, because he himself, like Cervantes actually used the word devil in the book. When you remember, when Don Quixote asked like where the books were, he thought that some devil came and took them. Like, but then they were like, no, it's not the devil, it's just a magician. So yes, maybe it's just a trait of that time. But then, even though he was sleeping and eating and didn't have any strength after being beaten up on his last adventure, he still gets up and goes to another adventure in the 7th chapter. So what was that adventure about?
Is it about windmills? Or?
Windmills.
So this time Sancho actually goes with him, and but does he have any influence on Don Quixote though?
Well, he tries to persuade him that it is not giants as he believed, but he didn't believe him, so maybe no at some point.
Yes, at this point he doesn't have any influence, and also Don Quixote actually goes to the windmills thinking they were giants, because he didn't simply think that like giants exist on their own. He thought that this magician that stole his books, like even when the priest and the barber told him about the magician, he didn't seem surprised there. He was like, yes, this is my enemy, like I know him.
It's again,
This seems interesting.
this thing with magician again chases back to the barber and the priest thing, that they kind of influenced, triggered this idea.
Yes.
Maybe
It's
it
once
would be-
again motivated him to go.
Yeah,
around.
maybe it would be like maybe something else would happen, but not perceiving it as a giants. Maybe triggered by wizards again.
And is he successful in this adventure?
No.
No.
Can you elaborate on what happened there?
I think he catches up on the wind.
He gets
Yeah.
injured.
Is like sticks or what is this? He just hits him.
Mills? Or I don't know how it's called.
I think he strikes it with his sword,
then
gets
like-
caught up in the wind, makes a circle and falls on the ground.
Yes, and there we can see that Don starts kind of teaching Sancho what it's like to be a knight, because even though he breaks and loses his lance or sword, like he ends up taking some stick from the ground or like from the tree, and says that true knights should not like eat too much or sleep too much, and even if they're wounded, they shouldn't complain about this. What do you guys think about this? I don't know.
I think like if we look at the illustrations, I don't know if they're like canon or not canon. Like the Don Quixote being like tall guy on a big horse, and like Sancho being like small guy on a mule.
Around.
And maybe in his imaginary world, he thought like he might be his next like последователь, наследник.
Descendant.
Yes,
Follower.
Yeah, like, and he will maybe just like try to teach him like, when you will become a knight, like, do like me.
Yes. But what is funny about this episode, if you remember, or it was not in this episode. Sorry, I'm confused, but there was an episode still in the episode that we are discussing now, in the first 14 chapters, that they were eating, and he was first teaching Sancho like what knights eat, that they prefer like simple things.
I think it was later a bit.
Yes, it was later, but then Sancho or Don said like that he is not obliged to eat this way because he is not a knight now. So, but if he were a knight, he would be like obliged to behave this way. So, what's the point in teaching Sancho then?
No, you know that in chivalry books, to become a knight, you should to
Squire.
to the real knight and then learn from him how to be a real knight, and then you can become one. And maybe because of this, Don Quixote thought that he must teach
He's
Sancho
building a proper career ladder.
Yes.
Like a replacement for him. Like the next гроза этой деревни.
it's like son and dad relationships.
I think it's also once again about Don Quixote's ego and his squire being an addition to his personal honor, just like Dulcinea, just like his horse, just like everything else. It's all just one big picture that he's supposed to fit in.
But do you think that Sancho actually enjoys being on this quest, or he has his goal and simply like only for the island?
He tolerates it for now.
Yeah.
For now, we don't know. Yes.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. Okay. Sorry. Все, да, 7 chapters.
That's the ending of the first chapters.
Надо чекнуть записи.
Сейчас может скажем то, что типа this is the end of the 7 episodes.
Ну сейчас вы вместе сделаете.
Я скажу.
Может ты сказать, потом ты типа резко.
Ну типа the end of this chapter, и ты говоришь start of mine.
Yeah, like
Давайте
there ends the 7th chapter.
Все нормально?
And there starts the 8th.
Рекординг идет?
Да, уже все поздно.
Верный театр. Сколько за дома болтают?
61.
Ну, примерно нормально. Как раз половина. Сейчас будет еще 7 chapters. Сейчас я скажу.
Мы будем делать вывод? Мы будем делать
7
вывод в конце?
chapters?
Может,
Или
в самом конце?
14.
Да,
Что
надо
делать?
сделать.
Ау.
Вывод.
Ну, про наши expectations. Ну, окей, мне есть что сказать, например.
Какие-то
Типа-
conclusion надо все-таки подвести, типа.
Мгм.
То есть, что мы поняли за эти 14 чаптеров?
Мгм.
Ну, это кто скажет? Ведущий?
Или
Можно
мы
просто
просто поделимся, о чем мы
скажется, и
думаем.
потом они закончат как-то тук-тук-тук-тук. И конец.
Мгм.
Сейчас давайте еще чуть-чуть обсудим 7 chapter. У меня, кажется, есть еще один вопрос. So we know that in the 5th and 5th chapter, Don Quixote ends up failing one of his adventures, but still he goes on another one, and this kind of shows that his delusions seem to not like they seem to be cyclical. So after each adventure, does he actually learn or get something from this experience, or he doesn't reflect on it at all?
He only sees what he wants to see, I think. And that's the whole point of his perspective in achieving all these 90 things.
Yes. So we are revealed that even after failures, he still doesn't reflect on anything and just simply ends up going forward and forward. So his delusions are indeed cyclical. And this is the end of the 7th chapter. Now we will move on to the second part of our discussion from chapter 7 to 14.
And I will start discussing chapters 8 and 14. In the chapter 8, I want to do a short summary what happened, And in chapter 8, Don Quixote encounters windmills and fights with them. He fails. Then in chapter...
It's okay.
Отрежьте этот момент. Подождите.
Вот так показывайте.
Так, guys, у нас полчаса.
Я могу начать. Okay, now we have discussed first 7 chapters, and now I will continue discussing from chapter 8 to chapter 14. Starting from the 8th chapter, do you remember what happened after the windmills? Something interesting?
He ran into the merchants, or not merchants, monks.
Yes,
some
monks.
monks.
There were 2 groups, monks and girls that he thought that were princesses, and he thought that those monks were like villains, and they kidnapped princesses. However, they were 2 different groups of people. So there was a fight with him and that
Servant of the lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't we get the introduction of Cervantes also in the chapter?
Yes, we got it after the fight starts. And then there is a meta discourse where he told that like this is all that I have, and other chapters are lost. I don't have them. And what happens next?
He finds another source.
Some more reads the Arabic version of some book. Yes, and then when he reads that Cervantes realizes that it's about Dulcinea, so he asks like to translate everything and tell everything to him.
Yes, he pays that person and he translates everything, and from that moment the narration from that fight continues.
Yes.
Okay, and then he fights with that person. He gets like defeated.
Yes, his ear is cut off. Something like that.
And then there is a dialogue between Sancho and Don Quixote where Sancho says that your ear is bleeding so bad, I want to help you. But then Don Quixote says that like real knights do not use
ointments
and there is only one remedy that will help me, but I don't have it now. So then what happens next? After the fight with...
He persuades the servant to go to Dulcinea and admit to her beauty. I think that's all. He also stole some money from the monks in the meantime.
Then they continue their journey by attending a village where some shepherds offer them some food. And then there is when they were eating food, Don Quixote starts a talk about the Golden Age. And what do you remember from his monologue? Like when he told real knights do not eat much food and so on. And people before were better, times were more peaceful.
And safer for women.
Yes.
Are you talking about this?
That
No one harassed or touched women because people at that time were
More proper.
Yes,
more proper.
It was the talk about the virgins, I think, and how the knights served for these virgins to have a safe environment, so they could live safely.
Yes. Also, he like you all have mentioned, he said that women before were more free and they had more personal space and безопасность, safety. But we all know that this is not true, and there was no time in the world which was so peaceful for the woman. And what do you think about this discourse? What was this just Don Quixote's fantasies, or is it connected to to Cervantes' way of thinking?
I think it's more of a Don Quixote, his perspective here, his lens of viewing the world, which is really saturated and vivid, and he also depicts women as idealized. In the example of Dulcinea, which is the perfect ideal for him, but in the real world she's just like a woman
Yes.
from the
And we
village.
can't even say that he's in love with her. He doesn't even know this person.
It's
It
like,
seems very weird. She's just an image in his head.
Mhm.
And that's it.
It's also, he mentioned some interesting thing, like every knight should have a woman to miss, and Sancho I think like one of the shepherds says that this might not be true because he knows one knight who doesn't have a woman, and like he's independent and he doesn't love anyone, but Don Quixote says that this knight is not a true knight. So what do you think about it?
so he states that if the knight doesn't have a woman to be missing, he's not a real knight.
Yes. He says that like he's a bastard, or he's just not a real knight that people would write books about.
Well, it comes from his
Yeah.
perceptions, like from the chivalry books,
Yeah.
where every knight has a woman to.
Yeah, in books they have this romantic line where a knight has a woman and or princess or son, I don't know.
Yeah, like he never encountered a real knight
Real knight,
to
yeah.
ask him like how to be a knight. So his only perception about this chivalry stuff is from the books. Like in the
Yes.
books, it says like there is a woman who you should miss, and like so that every knight should have that.
And I'm pretty sure he trusts the imaginary knights more than the real life knights.
Don't you think that Cervantes also did that consciously for Don Quixote to idolize a woman? So we could see the contrast of this, like of its not, how do we say, unauthenticity, like anti-authenticity of women's appearance, like in the plot in that time.
You
Like the
said
way-
it perfectly.
I tried to, because like he contrasts the way Dulcinea appears for Don Quixote, so the reader would see how unrealistic it is. So we can compare it to the other like chivalry romance or stories at that time, so that we can see the position that many authors put the woman into, like in the books. So maybe he did that consciously for the reader to comprehend, or like I don't know.
Yes. Or it was just an addition to the whole character of Don Quixote. Like,
Yes.
even in his sense, he can like have delusions about real existing people. Just make up an image in his head and believe it.
I think it was interesting how the after showed us how limited Don Quixote's way of thinking was, because he only like we discussed in the lectures, he only had like theoretical knowledge, but he wasn't like qualified enough to apply it to real life and become a knight.
But was it possible for him to become a knight though? I think it was a question of class, some position. He couldn't have become a real knight.
Well, once again, it was mentioned that his grandfather or
Yes.
grandfather was a knight, so I think
Maybe it was
it
possible.
was in the family, so he had an option.
I think it was possible, but considering his age and like his madness, he wouldn't able to survive a real fight or war.
Yes, maybe
Yeah,
it's
he
a
would get
question of
killed.
the age. Yes.
And also all his fights and actions.
Yeah, I think it was building a career in the military.
Yeah,
Who was building?
also,
Building a career
Ah.
in military.
yeah, and also like we don't have any information what he was doing these 50 years before deciding to become a knight. So yeah, maybe he had tried when he was younger, but failed, and now like he came back to this option again, or what? Like we only can wonder.
That would be a
Yes.
great fanfic, I think.
But we also know that he wouldn't be satisfied with being a real knight, because they actually don't go on such adventures. It's very different. So maybe he just didn't want.
solve real problems and help people.
Yes, and also he doesn't respect the real knights, the same as those in the books. He thinks that like Same with the lady example. Like if you don't have a lady, then you're not a knight.
Maybe for him they're not great knights
Yes.
because they don't have, I don't know, great mission.
Yeah.
Yes, and knights, real knights, I think they should serve to the king and do like what the king wants. But here, Don Quixote doesn't have any person standing higher than him, and he is independent. But I don't think that there is such a knight. And let's discuss the further chapters. As you have read, chapters 12, 13, and 14 are all about that song about Marcella and the shepherd. So, what do you think about it? Like when they were eating, and after his monologue about the Golden Age, one of the shepherds starting to tell their story. Like,
Кто читал этот
вы
кусок?
отрезали?
Я не дошел. Я просто сижу молча.
Нет, я читала там
Так,
похороны, и потом Дон Кихот еще начал говорить, типа,
Ща я посмотрю.
учить всех.
Я могу, короче,
Ну, я не знаю, что
пересказать сейчас.
Так я читала.
Начинаем? Okay, as we have already read, chapters from 12, 13, and 14 discuss the story of a girl, Marcella, and the shepherd that has died from a great love of her. So, what do you think about it? Shortly, like when they were eating, someone told that tomorrow will be like funeral of the shepherd. His name was like Chrysosom. And like he loved that girl Marcella. She was the prettiest girl in the village, and everyone loved her. But she didn't loved the shepherd back, and he killed himself.
Oh my god.
So also this girl was kind of like flirting with many people, I think.
She was not flirting, but people blamed her because she was pretty. But actually,
it's
like,
not real.
she was
I remember.
she was pure and so on. But people like were jealous of her beauty and that she doesn't belong to anyone. And there was a line where people said that she is a devilish girl and something like that. But it's all because like she didn't want to be with anyone, and she had like some goal for her life. She wanted to die a virgin, and like the biggest thing that she wanted is to be independent. But people didn't approve it,
And blamed her.
yes.
Well, again, I think it was like a smart choice made by Cervantes to make a portrayal of women that were unusual for the Golden Age. Because she makes a choice, she rejects all the standards that are waiting upon her. So I think she's really powerful figure.
No, I think in this period of time there were some girls
in
who
the
wanted to be not in a book, but in this period of time, who may choose to be a virgin or maybe and reject everyone, and they become a nun, or no, or am I?
I think
Feeling
those
something.
girls who are in the Cervantes church, like they gave their heart to the God
For
and
themselves.
yes.
But it still gives her some kind of autonomy. She's not
Yes.
insignificant here.
Yes.
That's why she's powerful.
She's not a usual female character like in the story.
Yeah.
All the female characters that were before, they were not important. For example, his niece, his home servant, or other woman. But here we really see the person and the individual. Okay, so in like unique person. Okay, and in this chapter, in the beginning, as you said, that like you believe that she flirted with everyone and so on, but like I think this was a trick to make us like believe it and understand the public opinion. But when the funeral begins, Marcella comes and she tells her story.
Yes.
She says that she should not be blamed for what happens with other people because of her beauty, because
Yes.
she don't flirt
It's
with
not her problem that
it's not
you're
her
falling in love
fault.
with her and
Yes.
she's not responding
She's
back.
not responsible for others people's feelings.
Yes, also she didn't tell that shepherd to kill himself, but everyone blamed her. And like everyone expected her to love them back, but she doesn't have to do it.
Yes.
And so she like gives her speech and leaves. But as a man, like instead of helping to creating a Magilla, like place grave, like they left and started to follow her. But then Don Quixote kind of saved her.
Yes.
Do you remember what he said to those men?
I think he was teaching them about chivalry, right?
Right.
He told them like what knights behave like and that their behavior is not so decent.
Didn't he proclaim that he would protect Marcella from the law?
Yeah.
Like he said that this may be the first woman that he met in his life that had like the purest intentions in her life, and he said also they mentioned that she was like more smart than beautiful, and but people's eyes were blurred by her beauty, and they didn't see like how smart she was.
And he also told that the knights don't like run after their ladies all the time. They just love them, but like still live their own life, kind of silently loving them.
Also, he said that men shouldn't like expect for women to fulfill their needs and
to be responsible for their emotions.
Yeah, I think about like why that character was like inserted in story. Maybe Cervantes wanted to like show how absurd it is, like in those chivalry stories where like a knight comes and like, you're beautiful, now you're my lady, and she's like, okay, fine, and like maybe he tried to show like it's not happening like this, like you can become loved just because like you fell in love, like you can,
it's not always mutual.
Like, and maybe it was like kind of a stop. Mocking like on this cliche stuff.
But still, it's not about two persons being on the other side equally. It's still like when the man proclaims love and the woman is it's not the other way around. Never.
And like, he like from this character he explains like it's not like their responsibility to respond to someone who find her beautiful to like respond with the same feelings back.
Can we say that his books played a good role for him in this scenario? Because he was the one to help, actually? Like the naiveness of his chivalry books helped, not the actual manhood of the world.
Also, there was an interesting moment after her monologue. Like, we believed her words, and now we think that like she's not guilty of his death, but people still kept like judging her, and his friend wrote on his like stone,
his letter or his poem,
grave, like
gravestone.
Gravestone. He wrote, "I love thee because thou art beautiful. You must love me so I'd be ugly. Like I will love you because you are beautiful, and you should love me back even if I am ugly." Like she must do it.
That was his love letter to her.
Oh,
if I'm
right,
not
right.
mistaken, yeah.
I want to find those lines.
У нас кат. Надо посмотреть, сколько у нас осталось времени.
7 минут.
30. Во-первых, у нас 10 минут в целом, чтобы закончить. Во-вторых, нам нужно закончить вот эту историю, сделать какой-то общий конклюжен.
Сколько?
Все
Все осталось?
Все? Он не снимал?
Не, он должен сохранить видео по-любому. Даже
Да,
если
но в
сел.
какой момент?
Нет, но в какой момент он типа кат сделал? Удачно будет, если ты когда сказала кат, и он сел.